from the crypt.
Hello, boys and ghouls. Welcome to episode 90 of Dads from the Crypt, a Tales from the Crypt podcast. My name is Jason. I'm joined by Mando.
Hi, Jason.
Hey there. And tonight we have a very special guest. We're joined by Brando from two podcasts, Appetite for Distortion and Appetite for Horror. Welcome.
I thought you were about to say from Tupac, and I was like, whoa. I keep
heard
the
the
wrong
same
bio. Hey, Jason. Hey, Armando. Sorry, I like saying your name, Armando.
It's cool. I can roll with that on my
Off the air. Armando. I can do it.
There we go. All right. So you're a man of many podcasts and many talents. So why don't you go ahead and tell us about them?
Sure. Well, I've been in radio for about 20 years. Lucky to have survived for the most part. Like a lot of my history is in classic rock. I won't bore you with that. But yeah, with the podcast, and which has been really cool to see a lot of the creativity come from, people like yourself over the last few years where podcasting has become so huge. So like 6 years ago, 7 years ago, maybe, one of my friends, radio friends, like, why don't we do a Guns N' Roses podcast? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, just because they're my favorite band. Well, what am I going to say? Like, November Rain, I love that song, for an hour. How is that going to keep going? Well, 399 episodes in, I've just gotten to interview just amazing people, from Alice Cooper to Dave Mustaine to past members like Matt Sorum and Gilby Clarke, and been able to branch out using my 6 degrees of GNR Bacon, which you know all about, Jason, because we kind of met, because that's how this is a crossover with Tales from the Crypt and Guns N' Roses, because Slash was involved in an episode. So I've had people from the horror element, like CM Punk, be on the show to promote his horror movie, but then get a Guns N' Roses story from him at the end. So after doing the Guns N' Roses thing for a while and finding myself interviewing some horror people along the way as well, I find I love horror, and I'm like, you know what? I have some time. I have no one to talk horror with because my wife is terrified of it. She's a Twilight person. Hunger Games, that's as far as she goes. I need to vent my love of horror. So I started an Appetite for Horror spinoff. So Appetite for Distortion is the Guns N' Roses one. Appetite for Horror is the next one. And we'll see if there'll be a third spinoff. But it's been a lot of fun getting to interview some really cool people like Al Katz, like who you've had on your show. Ace Von Johnson from LA Guns, who is a part of, I think he was on your show, right? Or no?
No, we've been in talks. We haven't.
Oh, you've been in talks. Okay. Because you saw he was wearing a Tales from the Crypt shirt on the episode that we did. Because he's in a horror documentary, The History of Metal and Horror. And I had him on the show. I had the director. So I've got 13 episodes of that.
Nice.
So just kind of slowly getting to the horror, this giant horror pool of podcasts. But it's been a lot of fun. So, but as I mentioned, the Guns N' Roses thing, what you see behind me, if you're looking, well, the posters and stuff, that's the, if you want to call it a breadwinning podcast, even though I don't really make money off it.
No.
But you know what I mean?
It's funny that you said, "Oh, I've got extra time. I'm doing a podcast," but we all know you're about to have your official spinoff any moment now. There goes all your podcasting time. But we'll get to that.
You're kind of right. Yeah, as I don't know whether seconds away, days away, a week away from having my first kid. So
nice. Congrats.
Thank you. So when Jason was on my podcast, we were talking about the best movies or shows in the horror genre to start off your child with. Because you're not gonna have them start out with Freddy Krueger, I don't think. But maybe
some of us.
Tales from the Crypt Keeper. You could do the cartoon.
I said before, my intro was Nightmare on Elm Street 2 when I was way too young to be watching that. I basically walked in on my mom watching that when I was living in Virginia, so I had to have been 5, maybe 5, and she let me just sit there and watch it. But I've always wanted to meet Mark Patton because I know he does stuff here in Vegas. Because like my first thing I ever saw in horror was his transformation in Nightmare 2 into Freddy Krueger, and to this day, that's one of my Like, I still remember when I finally watched it again as an adult, I remember being so much more gruesome in my head, but it's still great. I'm not knocking it.
They're terrifying. They were. but I think I got into them, I don't know, early teens. But I want to start them off young. I want to, see right away, having watched the Beetlejuice cartoon.
That's
I'm
awesome.
already thinking ahead. He's
There
not
you
even
go.
here yet.
Nightmare Before Christmas was kind of my daughter's intro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she wanted to watch Freddy when she was very, very young. And I let her watch it with me, but the rule was we watched the making of first.
Mm,
Like,
that's a good
I
idea.
wanted her
I
to
like
on the
that.
DVD because look, we had that. And I want to say, look, this is here. Look, here's the, and I think that was like kind of like broke down that barrier where she realized, oh, it's a guy in makeup playing a role, and it made it almost that much cooler.
Yeah,
That's a good idea.
I love that idea.
But there's still stuff like I wasn't letting her watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Not that it's gory, it's just terror. It's just very, very
Right.
bleak. And I wasn't gonna let her watch like Hellraiser. There's definitely some where I thought Nightmare on Elm Street was I mean maybe I don't know. She didn't seem to bother.
Yeah. So I'm just excited to have, I don't know if you do this. I'm already thinking about having him be a co-host for my podcasts. But you're right, Jason. I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break, but I want to have him. I want to get him like a plush microphone. I want to do episodes
cool.
like the first time he hears Guns N' Roses, the first time he watches a horror movie to see what happens. I'll do it responsibly, of course, but we'll see what happens.
We've had Jason's son on the show before.
Okay.
And it was really, really cool just to get different perspective of, we're all, now we're all 40 plus. And it's always cool to have that younger perspective, especially for someone that young, because the generation gap is just so huge. I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just kids that, obviously kids today have different technology, they grow up with different things. They're more desensitized, I think, to a lot of things than we were growing up. And I think it's just really cool to get that perspective of this cheesy 90s TV show from a teenager.
Yeah.
So I think that'd be really cool.
We're not going to look at it the same way. I mean, the way they're not going to look the same way that we did. Go ahead, Jason. I'm sorry.
I was getting Brando. When did you first watch Tales from the Crypt?
Probably when it was on HBO. That was the big deal growing up. There was, I remember the days before the internet, kids. So we're all 40. I still have a few months to go. I'm going to be 40 in September, but I do remember with no internet, so HBO and any other free Showtime weekend was the only time to see any nudity when you're going through puberty, to see anything horror related, scary. So it was always that late night watching the Spawn cartoon, which was pretty horrific and sexual as well. And
I have a very, very soft spot. That cartoon is just
so
top tier, in my opinion, way ahead of its time.
I rewatched it recently. I've been doing a lot of that recently, rewatching stuff I haven't since it aired, because I don't know. I live in nostalgia, I guess. But yeah, man, that was great. And that's probably how Tales from the Crypt happened. It's interesting when Jason came on to talk about your podcast on mine, and I did a lot of rewatching and kind of almost had my mistake. Like when I first moved to my new apartment, I live in Forest Hills, Queens, so we didn't have cable, or we didn't have I cut the cord. We didn't have the Apple TV set up yet. So I just had the internet, and I'm like YouTube, and I just saw Tales from the Crypt, and whatever reason it could set something off. And I just went on this entire binge, and I really don't remember a lot. I remember the whole scheme of it and the dad jokes, but I didn't remember specific episodes and who was on. So it was a real, like awakening for me. Like I remember watching it as a kid and knowing, almost getting kind of scared. That's how it was as a kid. When you would watch Freddy or Tales from the Crypt, almost like a pit in your stomach, I would feel like this is bad. Like I'm gonna be scared a little, like watching this, but I want to watch it. This is cool. So I couldn't even tell you a first Tales from the Crypt memory, but I've been since Jason and I have become Twitter buds. I've definitely been watching a lot since. And man, I miss it. I can't believe I can't believe I look back at all the A-list stars, and it's just mind blowing. So I'm glad there's a podcast like yours out there that dissects these episode by episode, because it deserves it.
Yeah.
I think the more I watch it, the more I really, really miss it. The more I really, really want something like this today. And, we've had stuff like the Creep Show anthologies lately and people trying to do it. But the charm of Tales from the Crypt was seeing those A-list actors just be able to kind of go ham and do whatever they wanted to do. And it was just stupid fun.
Oh, absolutely.
Like
So-
you wouldn't see Slash in Creep Show today. Like you just wouldn't. Like they wouldn't pay that money for him. And granted, it probably in Creep Show, to be honest, doesn't have the following to have the money to do that or the I shouldn't say the money, the pull. I'm sure he did it probably because he enjoyed the show. But
I know he tried getting involved with The Walking Dead.
oh really?
Why do I keep forgetting that freaking actress's name? Say freaking, she was so nice. I had her on the episode once. She plays Jadis on The Walking Dead.
Oh, I don't know the show. I'm sorry.
It's I want to say it's like Penelope. I'll look it up while I'm talking. But I asked her about it. She didn't know. But I had read that Slash submitted a song to The Walking Dead.
Oh wow!
And I actually did get to ask Gail Ann Hurd, who was on the horror podcast. I have to think of who was on what podcast.
Yeah, it's gonna be really confusing.
And I asked her about it, and she said there's just a lot of red tape that, like, as a creative, she would want that, but higher ups and getting permission and legalese and all that stuff, he wasn't able to be. I don't think he would have hosted it. He wouldn't have been on it, starring as Hank, the DJ. That wouldn't have happened on that. But you guys did Cabinet of Curiosities, right?
Oh yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of close, but I can't understand a word he's saying, man. I'm sorry. I can't. What's his name? But not Benicio del Toro.
Guillermo del Toro.
Guillermo. It was. I needed subtitles to understand. I know it's his accent, but it was like it was very poetic. He would go into episodes, but it wasn't like the Crypt Keeper.
Yeah. No, definitely not.
Just so you know, once you reach 40, you just turn on the subtitles automatically. It's just.
I'm the opposite. I hate subtitles on the screen because they bother me, and I find myself like focusing on the subtitles and missing parts of the show. But when it is like heavy Cockney accents or heavy English accents, I do have a turn on subtitles for.
So
it's Pollyanna McIntosh, by the way. And forgive me, I'm sorry,
Pollyanna. Yeah.
Yeah, so I had her on to talk about Darlin and another horror movie, and then I guess asked about she met Slash in an elevator one time, and that was that was her story.
Cool.
That was it.
If I met Slash, the one question I'd ask him is how he feels about the cover of "Sweet Child of Mine" and Step Brothers.
Yeah, sure.
All right, we'll get to some Slash talk in just a moment.
If he's even heard it.
Yeah. Let's dive into our episode for the day. We're talking In the Groove. Came out December 21st, 1994. Mando, since Jody's not here, you get to do the plot synopsis.
Hey, while I fumble for the Google tab that I had open, just quick shout out to our follower, a good friend of the show, Tommy, who sent me a crowler of the beer named after his dog Iggy. So thank you, Iggy and Tommy, for this delicious oatmeal stout. I appreciate it. And congrats to your dog for having a beer named after him. I went to my local brewery last week. And I asked them, I said, when do I get a beer named after my dog? And they said, talk to Jeff. So Jeff, we're going to talk soon. You guys don't know Jeff. If you did, that'd be weird.
It's fine. I appreciate. He sounds like a good guy.
El Jefe, yeah, he's a good dude. All right, so I'm gonna steal this overview mainly from a website called Midnight Reviews, which has a really kind of good review of this episode. So we are talking Tales from the Crypt in the Groove, season 6, episode what, Jason? Yeah, I think you already said 10.
I actually have it up on IMDb. Sorry, in case I forgot anything.
No, it's great. No, I usually do the same thing. I just have all these tabs open right now.
I get it.
Demoted to the graveyard shift by his sister/manager Rita, Gary, a sleazy, hot-tempered shock jock, experiences a major boost in ratings when assigned a new partner named Valerie. No longer willing to tolerate the domineering behavior of his older sibling, Gary, assisted by Valerie, devises a plan to murder Rita in the middle of the night. But those plans don't always go as expected. So what happens is he ends up going to kill Rita, who, by the way, we have to also state they both own 50% of this radio station, as it was given down. It was inherited from their parents. I'm not sure they specified, mom or dad, but for the parents.
There's a lot of mom stuff in this episode.
I think the mom, that their brother and sister, and the mom. I just rewatched it, so it's not like I remember this from years ago just to prepare. And I forgot a lot. I had seen it, Jason, when we spoke. And
I watched it when I was on.
But
so
I usually find I watch the episode, and if we push back recording, I'll watch it again. But if I didn't get a chance to this time, but at the end, he breaks into Valerie's house to kill her. And he's first of all, I have to state one thing. He pulls a comically large knife off his off his ankle, and like the straps for it fly everywhere. So that'd be some good evidence for the police. But then she is asleep, pretending to be asleep in bed and waiting for him with the firearm, and shoots and kills him as his radio show is playing, because he started a tape. He was playing a tape of himself recording a radio show. So that way people would think he's the studio, he'd have an alibi. And then at the end, you see that Valerie was in on it. And she was in on the killing of Gary. And you see her doing a radio show at the end, talking about how distraught and how upset she is about it, as the phone lines ring off the hook.
All right.
It's a good one.
It's a very horny episode, to say the least. Like, and it's kind of funny when you think of these people, like all these probably sex symbols they could have gotten to play Gary. And no offense to Miguel Ferrer, he just doesn't strike me as the epitome of handsomeness.
Well, I think that's part of the joke.
Yes,
People didn't really know what Howard Stern looked like when he first started.
Yes,
which is funny because my father, his name is Howard Stein, and he's from New York and everything. And he was like we lived, I think, in DC, and like people sometimes at restaurants, people would like start questioning if it was like
an alias.
What
a terrible alias.
That's kind of funny, especially considering that was probably before Howard Stern had his show on E. Yeah. So nobody probably really knew what he looked. Yeah, nobody knew what he looked like. I
think by this time, by this was 94. I think it was out, but like probably when he very first started in the 80s.
Well, that's what radio was, as I guess I could speak on behalf of the profession.
This is what I love. Synchronicity comes together where we have a guy who works in radio and has an Guns N' Roses podcast, comes on for an episode about radio with a Slash cameo.
I mean, it's perfect.
Perfect.
But yeah, us radio people, face for radio, that phrase, right?
Face for radio, yeah.
Now it's different where, we're on Zoom, people are doing TikToks. I mean, it's not like you have to be good looking to be in radio, but that was the whole point, that if you want to be an actor, that's why I got into radio. I don't like being really in front of the camera. This has taken me, I kind of get it. I have to get out of like my body a little bit, like, Weekend at Bernie's to be on TV and to be seen. We're supposed to be behind the scenes characters and theater of the mind, because he's reading the sexy stories and he's got a good radio voice.
Oh, his voice was great. His voice was fantastic.
So I think that's a lot of it. Yeah. And interesting, Miguel Ferrer, who I always think of Hot Shots Part 2 when he's in that. And he just looks in the camera and he's like, war, it's fantastic. I don't know, that line sticks out to me. If anyone who's saw that movie 1,000 times as a child. I didn't notice this, Jason. I don't know if we discussed this when we spoke. His last name is the same last name as Guns N' Roses drummer.
Oh, no way.
Frank Ferrer. So I wonder if there's a relation there. I don't know. It could be just a coincidence and I'm making it up, but I have no idea. So I think that's why. And yeah, when you mentioned sexual episode, this was HBO at its peak.
Oh, yeah.
Starting out with you seeing tits and ass. And it's just like this, as a prepubescent teen, this is what you're waiting for, late at night, those few seconds of brief nudity, because there was no such thing as internet porn back then, or perhaps I'm revealing too much, but whatever. It's I'm going to be a dad soon. So this is a good example for him to see what it was really like back in my day. But yeah, man, this was it was just really fun to see that. And then Slash's part, which I had completely forgotten about. Completely forgotten he was in an episode of Tales from the Crypt, and with his wearing the top hat, 1994 when Guns N' Roses is already broken up, so he's looking for things to do. And did you get a chance to talk to Al about this episode? Because he says like how Slash his scenes were short, but he just wanted to hang out on set the entire time, and that's all he did. He just wanted to be like see how everything unfolded. So just knowing that makes me enjoy the episode even more.
Mm-hmm. All right, Mando, what did you think of this episode?
I wasn't the biggest fan of it, just to be honest. Very just formulaic, and there was again, it's a Tales from the Crypt episode with no horror anywhere to be found.
I will say, yeah, I agree.
I feel like if you add a little bit more sex into it, it's just an episode of Red Shoe Diaries, or Silk Stockings even. And yeah, so not my favorite style for Tales from the Crypt. I thought the performances though were still fantastic, and the way it was shot and the soundtrack. I love that sleazy saxophone laden soundtrack. And again, the Slash cameo was cool because I didn't put two and two together when Jason said we were going to have you on the show. Then I saw the Slash cameo. I was like, oh, it all makes sense. And I always think it's cool whenever you see, because he wasn't like you could have cut that cameo out and it wouldn't have mattered, but it was a cool cameo to pop up in the middle of the episode and kind of get you to point of the TV and like, oh, cool, look at that guy.
Yeah, look at Slash. Yeah, exactly. But I completely agree with you where in the grand scope of things, it's not one of my favorite episodes, but it was well acted.
Yeah,
right. The plot is pretty much paint by numbers in this one. Like, you see the twist coming a mile away.
Yeah.
But I think the caliber of actor they somehow got for this episode really I thought it was actually very watchable.
Oh yeah, I'm not knocking as a. I mean, it's hard to knock an episode like this when all the performances come off so well. Like everyone does a great job acting, which takes it. But I think though, if you took this episode and got lesser actors,
yes,
we'd be sitting here just completely shitting on it.
Right.
And, but the fact that had good acting in it and people that could play off the roles. Listen, Michael Ferrer again, I think was hamming it up a lot. And I mean it in the best way possible because that's what the episode kind of asked out of him was to really kind of be step outside, I guess, maybe of his like he definitely wasn't the guy from RoboCop in this episode.
Yeah, well, interesting. This is his third Tales from the Crypt episode. He was in Things from the Grave, and then he had a kind of a small cameo in As You Sow. So he definitely understands the assignment for this. So I think that really helped.
Oh, and Things from the Grave, I thought he was great playing just a sleazeball in that. Like a great, he plays like the best sleazeball.
Yeah, and just to go, I gotta like to go through kind of their resumes a little bit. But he was in Star Trek 3, which and like playing some ensign or something like that. Obviously, RoboCop. He was in Deep Star 6. He was in a handful of episodes of Twin Peaks, like a good amount. And I always forget he was in Iron Man 3. I think as the vice president. And again, a pretty small role, but it's great that he's a very underrated actor. And unfortunately, he passed away too soon.
I think he passed away from cancer, right?
Yeah, I think throat cancer. And then again, from a technical perspective, like you said, this is actually a pretty good episode. It's directed by Vincent Spano, who didn't really direct anything before this, and only after this he only did some short films, but he had a pretty big acting career with a lot of TV. He was in a movie called A Stranger is Watching, which was like the movie that Sean S. Cunningham did right after Friday the 13th.
Oh, I know that.
I kind of want to watch it now because it's kind of a slasher set in New York City, like around Grand Central Station.
What? This is like all my shit. Like how I know about this.
And it has like it has a ton of actors, known actors in it.
If the killer quacks like a duck, even better. Like
he was in the movie Alive about the plane crash in the mountains, and he was also in The Prophecy 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
I recently went through and rewatched all the Prophecy movies.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and the first two I'll say, yes.
I need to do that.
I haven't watched those in the 90s.
The third one I fell asleep through. I didn't feel the need to get back. I didn't feel the need to finish it the next day. I'll just put it that way.
And then I think it was his co-producer, Valerie, is played by Linda Doucett. She was mostly known for being on the Larry Sanders Show. And then the other, I think his sister's Rita, played by Wendie and Malick, is known from Just Shoot Me. She was in Scrooge, The American President.
She's awesome.
Yeah, she's awesome. She was in Young Sheldon recently. And I was curious if Slash had done any other acting bits. He did a couple small parts. He was the DJ in the Buffy the Vampire Slayer the movie. He had a bit part in Howard Stern's Private Parts, and he also did the voice in Metalocalypse.
Metalocalypse. Who, by the way, is on tour now on tour with Baby Metal. I'm not going to. It's $80 to go see them here in Las Vegas.
Wow.
I don't really like Baby Metal. But I will say I'm not one of those those assholes like they're not metal. Yeah, like no, dude. If you like them, fucking go enjoy them, have a great time. Their gimmick is I think it's fucking phenomenal. Just not for me. But and they're also coming out with the new record and a sequel to his musical.
Nice.
which should be. I love
I haven't seen that. I need to watch. I need to go back to that show because it was so good.
The funny part is if you're a metal fan, it's even funnier because of all the puns they use. Like Demon Burgers is Dimmu Borgir the band, and they have all these band references you never would pick up unless you're a metalhead, and it makes it so much more like tongue in cheek and funny.
And then
I shouldn't even say metalhead. I mean like stupid metalhead, like that knows all this stupid European shit.
Let's see. And then rounding out the cast, there's a woman, Carla, at the very beginning, who Gary, Michael Ferrera's character, is kind of doing a role play or something with. That's played by Rusty Schwimmer, and she has a really good resume. She was in Sleepwalkers. She played a cop in Candyman. She was in Jason Goes to Hell. I think she's the cafe owner, the diner owner, who's like making the Jason shaped hamburgers and like cutting out the eye holes with her finger.
I love her.
She's also in Twister, The Perfect Storm. She was in the Belko Experiments.
Okay.
Yeah, she's had a really cool career.
Damn. I like it.
Like I said, overall, I think it's kind of, this is a paint by numbers episode with a really, really good cast. And the director, who I'm surprised hasn't done much more.
Yeah, the direction was great. Like the way the shots they got, and I thought the cinematography actually really well done too. Like had a lot of classic tropes, but those tropes is the reason why they're tropes.
Right. There's that really soft lighting when it's like close up on his lips.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
I enjoyed that.
Was I the only one? Maybe I'm a bit of a prude now in my old age, even though I'm the youngest. But just at the beginning, I'm just like, "What? Can he say that on the radio?" That was the FCC listening. I was like, even how it was so bad. Like they're having sex in the radio. No one's getting in trouble. The producers right there. My professional radio mind is flipping out.
I was going to ask you about any inaccuracies for radio because I noticed he kept walking away from his microphone. He'd like walk to the other side of the room while talking.
You'd have to have a really sensitive mic to do that, So yeah, I wasn't thinking about the if he's pushing the right buttons, but just at the beginning, I'm just like, whoa, radio used to be like that, I guess, in the days of Howard Stern and Opie and Anthony, and it's just like, wow, there was a shock jock era in the 90s that would not exist today, much like I guess Tales from the Crypt itself.
Right.
Because again, whenever I watch anything pre-90s, it's just like, wow, we lived in a completely different world, what we can get what we can get away with. And but at the end of the day, when I did watch it, I completely agree with Armando that it just wasn't a scary episode.
Yeah,
it was like a silk stockings. That was a good reference.
Yeah. I do think that one of the fun things about the 90s stuff you see is like you mentioned like, oh, can they get away with that? I think somehow the clever innuendos are somehow raunchier than like I'm the guy. I think like Cherry Pie by Warrant is raunchier than WAP.
But, oh wow.
And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean because like I still remember as a kid, I'm a big fan of Motorhead, and hearing the song "Killed by Death," and the first line of that song, they played this shit on the radio MTV, and MTV was, "If you squeeze my lizard, I'll put my snake on you." That shit flew right by the censors. No one cared. At least now they're overt, they're obvious with the sexual references, but the cleverness of that was always funny. How they would just like that song's raunchy is shit, and it just got through all the censors.
I know.
One other thing that I don't know if many other people pick up on, but they kept talking about Lancaster being the city that they're in, and it's like a really, sorry if I have any listeners that live there, but I've gone out there for work a couple times. It's a real shithole. It's not nice. It's not a good place.
Comes from a guy living in Los Angeles.
No, it's like worse than Bakersfield. If you know anything about Bakersfield.
I know Bakersfield. I know about Bakersfield.
Yeah, that was funny when they were going through the markets. Like, Mom didn't leave me any radio stations and all these big markets. Just leave me in this shitty town with this shitty market that I get to have to split with my sister, who's going to end up killing me.
Right. And I'll never forget the day after the 2016 election, I had to go out to Lancaster, and I went from a really, really bad mood to like just ready to burn the whole thing down. I was not happy about going to Lancaster on that day.
Jason, this would be a fun episode, not a fun episode to show your kid, but to ask your kid about like, because what's the perception from kids nowadays when it comes to radio and disc jockeys? Because like when I was a kid, I mean, and you guys are probably the same, disc jockeys were kind of like local celebrities.
Oh yeah, totally.
Like everyone knew, God, it sounds really bad in hindsight, but like everyone knew Julio the Gardener from 98.5. Like everybody knew Julio, and everyone knew like the classic rock from 96.3 guy. I forgot his name now, Kramer. Like everyone knew those guys. And Andy K. What's funny is Andy K. was our morning guy on 92.3 Comp at the rock station, and also was the guy buying drugs for my parents at the mini mart across the street from our apartments.
Nice.
Well, I said buying drugs for my parents. This is like this is a parental tip not to do. My mom would send myself like right at the age of 8, and my sister sometimes at the age of 14 to walk across the mini mart to buy things, and we'd somehow we'd go take a bag with us. We'd leave a bag on the counter and buy like bread. We'd give Andy X amount of money. I shouldn't have used his real name. I'm going to beep his real name out.
Do a little slide.
Granted, this is 32 years ago. I think this is statute of limitations have passed. Right. We'd hand him a bag and the loaf of bread, hand him $10, and somehow come home with 100. Like, I don't know how that worked. I don't know what was happening there, but but I never put 2 and 2 together. Like, why is this cool guy who has to be making millions of dollars on the radio be working at the mini mart across the street from us?
Another misconception that we don't make money, but we're drug addicts. So maybe exactly nothing has changed. Nothing has absolutely changed. So I do appreciate those seeing any radio episodes. I like looking for horror movies involved with radio. One of my favorites is Pontypool.
I love Pontypool
too.
What was the
second Texas Chainsaw movie?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And he was in another one. Why am I forgetting that actor from Texas Chainsaw 2? And all the Rob Zombie movies.
Bill Moseley.
Bill Moseley, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's called Dead Air.
Yes.
Yeah, where he plays a DJ. So I just find it cool. I mean, obviously I can relate to it in that sense, but it is a very unique medium or avenue to develop a horror plot around. So that's why they could have gotten more creative with this episode, but I just don't think it was that. It just wasn't, it just wasn't meant to be anything more grand or anything, use radio in that way.
Even though was it the fog where it's basically Adrienne Barbeau who's like the last lifeline to everybody by being on the radio and telling people whatever. Like it's kind of it's interesting. We're an interesting time period where even when we were younger, I think Game of Thrones might have been the last thing that people got around the water cooler to talk about, I guess, at work or whatever. But like when we were younger, like people would bring up like, oh, did you hear what so-and-so said on the radio last night? Man, it's kind of bummer that we're not in that time period anymore.
Well, we have ourselves to blame with the podcasting world. So that's what it is. As I work for, the company I work for, iHeartMedia. I mean,
I have a friend that works for you guys too out here in Las Vegas.
So yeah, we have it's everywhere. I mean, it's a big company that does a lot of different things, and there's a difference between like a national broadcast, like you'll have Ryan Seacrest, he's only in Los Angeles, but he's on several stations, or Steve Harvey throughout the country, and then you got your local guys, like out on Long Island, they're local, they're owned by someone else, and they're local celebrities. It's completely different, but you only get a certain slice of life with that. Here, we have no time limit, no commercial breaks. We can talk to people locally or across the world. I'm so fortunate that people who listen to the, because I'll just talk about the GNR podcast specifically because I've been doing it for so long, that I got people in other languages who reach out to me. And
That's
it's one thing
cool.
for them to be a fan of the band and like it, but I'm an English speaking podcaster and they listen. And if English is not their first language. So I just think with podcasts, you were able to connect a little bit more how radio used to be in the days of Wolfman Jack or the days, of Miguel Ferrer, those days when he's like, hello, Michigan, where are you? It's a little different nowadays. So it is interesting getting a younger perspective on these things that we grew up with, for sure.
I wonder if the younger person's version of a DJ now are all these TikTok or
I was about to say
YouTube
like
stars.
My kids talk about Mr. Beast on YouTube all the time. It's all
I see headlines about him, but they talk about him. They watch this person.
Oh yeah.
What
I know who he is. I've seen a couple of his things. I think he's a person that genuinely actually really enjoys giving to charity. And just a shout out to him. I just read today a shout out to him. I guess people were giving one of his friends shit for transitioning, and he just fucking like went all in. Like, nice, I support them no matter what they want to do, and if you don't like that, good riddance. Don't be a fan of mine. Like, granted, when you have 8 billion fans, you can say that, but I always respect when any content creators, like, I don't give a fuck, dude. Like, I'll lose followers over this because we've done it before, Jason. Because I don't give a shit. And but I always respect that when someone that big is supporting because it's so easy to just not support the cause. I'm looking at you, Kid Rock. You fucking rich Detroit guy.
This is week 2 of Bash on Kid Rock.
That's endless. I mean, it's how many weeks can you go with this? I mean, it's going to be endless. It's silly. It's absolutely silly. And yeah, I think that's maybe the bad part of where you can get wherever you want. He doesn't have to listen to the radio. If stations don't want to play his songs, whatever, he has his own corner of the market. He does his own thing, whatever.
That's the blessing and the curse of the internet. Everyone has a voice, which is great, but then everyone has a voice, which sometimes isn't great. But let's just so we can keep moving on. Let's go to the comic comparison. I don't have exactly which comic this was from because Jody just sent me the comic. Mon, if you can look that up while I'm talking.
It's literally called the story is the exact same name, but I'll look up.
No, I mean like which episode it's from. But I have the comic in front of me. I just don't have the name and the episode and the year and everything. But basically, it's one of the ones that starts kind of at the end.
It was in Crime Suspense Stories, Volume 121.
Great, thank you. So basically, there is a guy who is a disc jockey. He's murdered his wife. There's a song playing, and he's using that as his alibi. That's kind of how we start, and then he kind of does like a flashback to how he originally met his wife Rita when he was a nobody, and then he became a big disc jockey. Then one night at a party, he meets another woman, falls in love with her. One thing that's funny about this comic is I don't know if it's a typo, but they keep calling him Larry and Gary. I don't know why, but it keeps going back and forth.
It's like in Parks and Rec. If you watch Parks and Rec, you'd understand.
I left.
Thanks.
But this is like in type, so it's I can't tell if they're like messing with me or I'm losing it. Anyways, so during the flashback, he meets another woman. He starts having an affair, and he wants to get rid of his wife. So he does the same thing where he like sets up a whole thing with having he pre-records a couple records. So he's going to go and kill his wife and come back before the records are done. Except right after killing her, the record starts skipping, and it's skipping of him talking about a little part that he talked about where he says, by the way, folks, in case you're wondering, the title of this record was My Alibi. And they keep skipping on, that record was my alibi, that record was my alibi, over and over again. And the end of the comic is him just like sitting in front of his dead wife's body, putting his hands in his head in his hands.
Interesting.
He's just fucked up over a record skip.
And have the image of his fist just being in his eyeballs, like him screaming.
Yeah.
How often do you find that you like the comic version better than the episode, or vice versa?
Usually, I mean, it kind of depends, but I think I usually it depends on which season. But I usually like the TV episode, because it takes a little more time developing things, and the comics are only 6 pages. So they have to like really get through it.
There've definitely been a good handful though of comics that have been way better than the episodes.
Yeah,
sometimes though the comics have understood the time period they were written in, right? The 50s and 60s sometimes. Whereas sometimes there's stuff in the comics that's like, ugh, like like I'm glad we think differently.
It's kind of a mixed bag. I think on average we prefer the episode.
Okay.
And part of it, I think, has to do again with all the amazing actors and people working on the show are doing such a high caliber job that they can elevate it, even if it is relatively the same. Or sometimes they just take all they need to do is take the name, and they can do whatever they want with it. This one is pretty close for the most part, but obviously modernized.
And one thing actually been surprising too is actually, again, bring up the point about being in the 50s and 60s. There have also been some comics that were insanely progressive for the time period. Like there was one I forgot where it's all about the KKK and how they're the evil in the world, and very, very like anti-racism, which was probably in the time period in the 50s, very controversial at the time, sad to say.
Right.
So I think it's kind of cool to we've seen all kinds of different, worlds from looking at both.
Yeah. All right, let's do our episode rating. We do 0 to 5, 5 being the best, 0 being the worst. You can do half points. Brando, you're our guest. You can start us off.
I will give it a 3. I give it a 3 because it's not the greatest episode, but well acted. It has Slash in it. But yeah, not enough murder or blood in it. Even the sex scenes, they were more, Tales from the Crypt, sexier, episodes. So I'm a solid 3. Not terrible, but okay.
All right, Mando.
I'm going 2.5, and it says right in the middle. Yeah. Again, I don't think it was terrible because, like Brando said, with the great performances and really good direction and some really cool cinematography. But again, whenever I see Tales from the Crypt, I want horror. Real fast, we didn't talk about the wraparound.
Oh yes, we forgot.
I totally forgot about this. Yeah. Only because I have to bring up the Crypt Keeper with a car in his crypt. And my favorite thing ever is
in his little vest and his sweater.
Yes, and if you look at the front of the car, it has CK embossed on the front plate, and then it has the hood ornament of his face.
Oh, that's cool.
And again, I always just imagine the Crypt Keeper like at an auto shop, like saying, "No, I want it to look like this," like having like a little sketch of how he wants his car to look.
Imagine the Crypt Keeper going in for like an oil change,
Yeah, I always just have this like, are you guys fans of the show American Dad?
I'm more of a Family Guy, but
Roger in American Dad is always dressed up as the Crypt Keeper is basically Roger. He just likes to dress up and have fun and pretend to be different people, and it makes me very, very happy. So the Crypt Keeper wraparound, what's a good wraparound? It always boosts my spirits too. But I think 2.5, and I don't think that necessarily means it's bad. I just think it wasn't on my. Again, I want more horror.
Yeah, I could go other side of that coin. I'll go with the 3. Just again, the caliber of acting is really good.
Mm-hmm.
The Slash cameo is great. It's just it's very meta. It's very fun. It just kind of gets in, gets out. It doesn't like make him. It doesn't draw it doesn't stop the whole episode. He just kind of comes in, does his thing, and leave. You're like, okay, cool, Slash.
It's not off top. It's crazy to me to think he said they were already broken up at this point in 1994. That they had just gone on that tour. What, in 93 with Metallica?
Yeah, 92, 91, 92. It might have went into 93.
But it's, man, they were such a global band at the time to break up. It blows my mind. But again, the ego at the head of that band, I understand like why things happen, why they happen.
A lot of things at play. I mean, he at that time, Axl, this could be a horror movie in itself. He had a psychic with him named Sharon Maynard. He went by Yoda, who would tell him that would read Polaroid pictures of people and read energies and tell them that. That's why Axl doesn't like Maynard, or at least didn't. Maynard James Keaton, that is, ironically, feel his energy. And I think even warned like not to play certain cities that start with a certain letter. I think he was a very lost person looking for help wherever he could get it. But before I do mention it, because obviously they broke up, but Slash still, he's got this hat he wears all the time.
Yeah.
How's he gonna get the headphones over that? As a radio person, like
upside down.
That's not appropriate to wear, a corncob pipe hat, with a and when you need to wear headphones, you have to like a really long extension or just take your hat off, I guess. But Slash doesn't do that.
Here's a question. So he hands him his his headphones. Do people bring in their own, or do they just share? They like wipe them down?
I guess that depends. Usually, you should bring your own. You definitely should bring your own when you go. I know when I worked at Sirius, they had extra pairs in the studios, but most places lucky you have your own and take it with you because it might be stolen.
Yeah. Now I'm just imagining an extra long headphone that goes all the way over there.
I know. No, I take mine home. They go in my backpack wherever I go. I've had these for a while, but yeah, that's something a nerd part of me said. I'm like, Slash, take your hat off, dude. At least for this part, we still know you're Slash without the top hat. At least play kind of into your role.
That's funny. All right, now let's hear from our Uncle Al. And we're back. So normally Mando does song of the day, but since we have a music aficionado, especially in the Guns N' Roses realm, I thought, Brando, I'd ask you to pick a song It can be Guns N' Roses for Slash's honor, or you can go other way. But what song would you like to pair for this episode?
I'm thinking, I guess I will still have to stay on brand, but to kind of stay within the larger scope of horror. It's what I ask a lot of my guests on the horror show, Appetite for Horror, what would make for a good Guns N' Roses horror movie? Because I try to, tie everything in together, whatever. And I think the best one would be Used to Love Her. Because even Axl has said that this is written about a sick subject. It's written about fantasy. But sometimes with your significant other, you just want to rip their fucking head off and just bury it. And it sounds almost like the same script in a way of this Tales from the Crypt episode of just wanting to kill somebody. And I don't know, that seems like a fun song to and it's upbeat, but it could be a horror movie. And also recently, because I edit a lot of I don't know if you guys do this, I go back to old episodes and I edit clips out, highlights. I see other talk shows doing that. So I was editing an old episode with this guy. He's a tattoo artist out in California, Howard Tiemann, and he's in with the Guns N' Roses crew. He's been in the LA scene for the longest time. And I was just figuring out what his 6 degrees of GNR bacon was. I still want to hear about his story. He's a tattoo artist. I have tattoos. Cool. Let's see where it goes. And he goes, the beginning of I Used to Love Her, where, Axl's kind of whispering something and you hear somebody laughing in the background, whatever. I don't want to redo it. And he's like, that's me. I know, it was terrible. He's like, that's me. And he redoes it. And I'm like, what? He's like, that's me on the record. He was credited.
That's super cool.
And at the same time, Civil War, that they used the movie Cool Hand Luke.
Yeah, I love that.
Kick it off. So he said that they were fans of the movie, and Axl called him one day and said, do you have a VCR? Bring it down to the studio. He brings down his VCR. They put in Cool Hand Luke, and they record it onto the album from his VCR.
Wow.
And it's just like little stories.
That's super neat.
Like, yes.
I love that.
I'm glad you guys appreciate that, because it's the GNR nerd in me appreciates that.
I like that. Anytime you hear those stories about famous albums and how they got X on the record or who's in the, that's so cool.
He's just a tattoo artist. He's just a random dude still doing it out in LA. And then, he's on GNR Lies and Use Your Illusion.
My favorite Guns N' Roses memory was in the Appetite for Destruction video. Welcome to the Jungle video, when he walks up and his hair is all like straight and chill, and he's got a suitcase, and the bus goes by, and then he doesn't have the suitcase anymore. His hair is all poofed up. And I remember I was really young, so that came out like 92, 93, or no, Appetite for Destruction like 89
when it came out.
Yeah.
87.
So God, I was definitely not 4. So it was after the fact when I saw it on MTV, and my cousin goes, that suitcase was full of Aquanet. And like this day, that I love that part of that music video just because of that.
Nice. Brando, here's a question I've always wondered, because I don't know if it's a myth or whatever, on the song Rocket Queen. Is there really did they really record a woman having sex in the studio? Is that true or false?
No, that's true. That is true. So I forget her name. Maybe it was Adriana Smith or something, but she was kind of like almost a groupie to the band, but she was more of Steven Adler's girlfriend, the drummer who eventually got kicked out for doing too much drugs in Guns N' Roses.
That's a lot of drugs then.
I know. Yeah. So I think I don't know how the story went, but Axl, I guess, thought it would sound cool if they had moaning in this part of the song and wanted it to be authentic, and just like getting that guy Howard Tiemann, using somebody around him to add something to a song, he had sex with her in the studio. And I remember, I don't think Steven was mad. I think because they all shared her. It's so funny because I don't know if you guys, because you probably follow horror websites as well. This is one called Graveyard Shift that always posts the same article about like Axl Rose did Steven Adler's girlfriend in this song, and like this story is 40 years old, and why you keep
it's one of those ones I've heard so many times. I just want to know if it was.
I mean, I wasn't there. I wasn't in the studio, but as far as I know, that is quite true.
If anyone would know that wasn't there, it would be you. All right, we're gonna skip trivia / horror news tonight since Jody's not here. We're gonna move to
wait,
the.
well, I can do a little bit.
Okay, oh yeah, if you got something, throw it out.
Yeah, no, I just want to give a shout out to Panic Fest, which did a virtual film festival this year. I've been kind of watching that along, and I've only watched 4 feature length movies so far, and I'm not gonna lie, I've been very underwhelmed, except for the Banality today. Banality, which I watched today, which I really liked. But they did one called Invoking Yell, which is about a Chilean female black metal band from the 90s going into the forest to record vocals for the record. And I will say, I was super stoked for that, being that I love black metal, and I was super underwhelmed. Not like I didn't hate it. I think a lot of people are gonna like it, but I also think if you're gonna do, I've noticed a trend with a lot of modern horror where they do this slow burn, but you can do a slow burn, but something has to be happening. And I think sometimes they get too caught up with doing a slow burn when like this movie would have been better if it was a short, like or a long form short, like 30 or 40 minutes. It would have been, I think, a nice tight 30 or 40 minutes as opposed to an hour and 30 minutes with 45 minutes and nothing happening. But still, my favorite thing about this festival has been there have been some phenomenal shorts, and maybe on Twitter, something like that, I'll throw some out that I really loved. But some of the shorts I absolutely just adored, and it's making me write down directors' names. Like I just want to see them do something else, But I watched The Banality today, which was I thought, not super horror, kind of drama, but with some great performances and a really cool story. But anytime any of these horror festivals do virtual film festivals, I am in. So please keep doing that. And by the time you listen to this podcast, Evil Dead Rises will have hit the theater. So I'm going to go see that on Friday, and send us your thoughts on that. We'd love to hear your thoughts on that movie if you guys see it.
Okay. Now let's go to our Patreons where we post our weekly Would You Rather. This week, again, in honor of the Guns N' Roses theme, I put down, would you rather listen to Use Your Illusions 1 or Use Your Illusions 2? Unfortunately, I was a little late posting this, so we only had a few people vote, but everyone did say Use Your Illusions 1.
Okay.
Armando, do you have a, preference?
So I do have to state that I was never the biggest Guns N' Roses fan. And
I'm saying, but if you had to choose one of those records,
I don't know really the difference off the top of my head, but I will choose my favorite Guns N' Roses song of all time because it was the baddest fucking song in Terminator 2. Is You Could Be Mine. So whatever album that song is on gets my pick. I love that song, and not like not like facetiously or whatever. No, that's a great song. Period. End of story. And again, I have nothing. I'm more on the darker side of metal. But to pretend those albums weren't great fucking records, it would just be dumb.
Yeah.
You might appreciate I had Bobby Blitz on from Overkill, and just to hear his thoughts from just that thrash heaviness of how he appreciates, Appetite for Destruction. It's just very cool to hear that. But yeah, You Could Be Mine. So your vote is for Use Your Illusion 2.
I'm gonna go with that.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with that one too. As well. Album too. I'm a huge Estranged is my favorite Guns N' Roses song. But also again, it's got Civil War, which has Cool Hand Luke, is again one of my favorite movies. Knocking on His Door is great. I always thought, November Rain is fun, but it's not. I always thought it was a little overrated in my humble opinion. And So Fine is a great song.
And those records too, especially for people from our age growing up, like Guns N' Roses were such like a big band. Like there's just, but also those records were not just commercially successful, they were critically successful, and are again like not my favorite albums, not my favorite band, but I could never, if anyone says those albums suck, they're just wrong. Like that's all there is to it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Musically, those albums are fantastic.
A different era. The people lined up at midnight to get those albums. Like people were going to be lining up at midnight to see Evil Dead. And I wish I was too young to have experienced that to line up for a music release. Again, people do that for movies. This new Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, a special kind of horror movie coming out. I went in on the day of for Chinese Democracy and walked right into Best Buy with no problem. So that was no issue there.
We had it a little bit down here in Las Vegas, and it probably ended about 20 years ago. We had a record store called Odyssey Records in like the worst part of town, but they're open 24 hours. So a lot of us would just go at midnight, and it was kind of cool because not everyone's there to buy the same album. They actually, that's what they were there. They closed at midnight, but they would do, if you came at midnight, you could buy that Friday's releases, or it was Tuesday at the time. Back then, all new music came out on Tuesday, and it was cool because it'd be in a line, and you just walk up and tell them what you wanted. They'd pull it to the back and give it to you, but it was kind of just a fun experience, just being with a whole bunch of other music fans. It was like record store day without the fanaticism, and I mean that in the best way possible. It wasn't just people trying to going there to buy and flip CDs. It was people wanting to go buy albums to listen to them, and it was such a cool experience.
So, Brando, what's your preference between 1 and 2?
I always say that it's like choosing children.
Yeah, choosing your baby.
Because I'm just not at the mindset. I know there are 2 albums, but it's an interesting story where that they weren't sold as a double album. You can pick 1 or 2. Reason being, if they were sold as 2, they would be behind the counter and be more expensive for kids to buy.
Oh wow, that's a good.
So if they're sold by 1 individually, you can get them however you want, and they're still in the reasonable CD price. You can go back and get another one. So he didn't want to outprice his fans to do that. People talk about this. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I always thought it was the opposite, where they were trying to make. I figured a double CD would be cheaper overall, so I thought they were trying to price gouge on making you pay for 2 individual albums. That's cool to know.
Because you don't have to pay for 2. You can buy 1. When I first started making, as a teenager, my own money, I bought Use Your Illusion 1 first. I remember that. I bought Apettite and Use Your Illusion 1 first. I didn't get, 2. I didn't get Lies yet. So I worked my way around it. But yeah, because you've seen double CDs. They're, I don't know, the days of Sam Goody, $20, $30, and they're behind the counter because they're more expensive as opposed to a $10 CD that you can just take right then and there. But the talk, and I know it's a fun conversation to have about there's fillers. There should have been 1 album. Like we talk about movies. If we cut this down, look, this band has released next to nothing, for years. I want to take as much as I can get. So the fact that it's 2 albums, I like to think it as it's a 1 album. I don't like to separate, but not to be a complete, party pooper and not play the game. I will say, Use Your Illusion 1, because it has November Rain, which I like it. To each their own.
Oh, that music video for November Rain, by the way, is just iconic, and like I remember seeing that all the time. That's a great song, but the music video is fantastic for that.
Over 1 billion views, maybe 2 billion views on YouTube now.
Oh wow!
And maybe another song you want to hear, Armando, a hard song, Perfect Crime.
I know Perfect Crime, yeah.
Okay, yeah. He couldn't sing it now at 60 years old, but definitely one of the harder songs that they have.
And just to plug your show a little bit more, I think of the handful of episodes I've listened to, the ones with the director of November Rain and Strange music videos.
Yeah,
fantastic interview.
Thank you. I would like to get him on again. Andy Morahan. He did November Rain. He did Estranged. He did Don't Cry. He worked on Garden of Eden, where it's just a fisheye lens. Yeah, and it's just cool to hear about the creative process from, the other end of the spectrum, because there's a lot of, I think, misconception out there about Axl Rose. And everyone I've interviewed, I never heard a bad thing about the guy. It's all like media and press, and I would love to know what horror movies he likes. I know Slash is a huge horror fan, and I think he started his own production company and everything.
He did. I was looking that up yesterday, and it's like Slash Productions. They haven't done anything in a long time, so I think it's probably dormant.
Well, there was a new recent announcement that he made.
Oh, I didn't see that.
I will have to find it. I think I find it because it's funny doing these podcasts. I don't know about you guys. Maybe it's how you get. Maybe it's how you become friendly with like Al Katz, right? Like some people you just become friendly with, I guess. So I've become friendly with. His name is Peter Napoliello, and he worked at Geffen Records back with Guns N' Roses and Whitesnake, and he sent me. Where is it? Okay, it was actually in Variety. I'm a producer. Slash launches a horror film banner, Berserker Gang.
Oh.
So he's launched a horror production outfit called Berserker Gang. So I want to see what comes from that. Okay. And also their tour manager, Del James is freaking obsessed with horror as well. I mean, if you got, I don't know if I'll ever do my show because apparently Guns N' Roses is like I'm blacklisted because I get picked up by news outlets, even though I'm a nice guy. I swear I don't do clickbait. It's other people that take my interviews. Try to get Del James on this show.
Okay.
As my favor to me. To hear him talk about horror movies.
Write it down, Jason.
All right. And then to wrap up, we do our dad advice. We put out a call for questions on our Instagram stories, and I put one out on Twitter. We love getting questions, so don't be shy. Mando, show us what you got.
We got a bunch today. From our friend MJP12342 on Instagram. What type of lawnmower should I buy?
Ooh, I haven't owned a lawnmower in a while because I've been living in apartments for the last like 15 years, 20 years.
It depends also like where you live at and how big your lawn is. A big questions. Like I have a small yard here in Las Vegas. I just have an electric mower that I plug into the wall, and it's fantastic because I don't have to go buy gas for it. It takes like no maintenance, and it costs like $70 on Amazon. So it breaks, I really don't give a shit. And I'll also say like the sacrilege of being a dad is just fucking pay someone to mow your lawn. Like, don't do it yourself. It's just too much work. Like the older you get, value your time and just fucking pay someone $40 to mow your lawn.
Or have a kid that can do it for you.
Unless you really actually enjoy doing it. Some people enjoy doing it. And I think like if I had a big lawn and got to just ride on a lawnmower with a beer in my hand, that'd be fucking cool.
That's what my wife's dad used to do. She's from Chicago, and they kind of lived in a suburban area. And he would just have a giant tractor kind of lawnmower and just fucking go around. Okay. Yeah, being from Long Island in New York now, man, have always someone pay for that. I've never owned a lawnmower.
Damn, MJP, I'll make sure to ask this question to Jody next week, who actually has a giant lawn.
Right, yeah,
in middle of nowhere, Tennessee. Because here in Vegas, in New York, in LA, like just lawns aren't that big of a deal.
So here's the quintessential Jason story. When I was in high school, like middle school, high school, growing up, I lived in Oregon, so grass grew very quickly there. It just was wet all the time. And I liked mowing the lawn. It was just kind of fun. It was kind of, cathartic. And I did that thing where you would just kind of go around and around and around, and you just get to the smaller patch. And then one day I was like maybe 3/4 of the way done, and then a smallest garden snake you could imagine shot out. And I ran into the house as quickly as I could. I used to go back out for like a week.
Do you prefer grass or do you prefer just nothing? Never mind.
Oh,
thanks.
Mando. All right, what's next?
To be fair, I was pretty restrained this episode because I'm just tired. But I had notes. I lost my notes of things I needed to ask Jason. And
I'll be around next week.
I won't be though. I'll be next week. I'll be if any of our fans are in Arizona, I'll be seeing the band Enslaved in Arizona next Sunday. So if you're there, say hi, but you're probably not there, so it doesn't matter. Why did from our friend film Staten Island, why did Robert Patrick do a super cameo in a quick episode?
Yeah, that was The Visit.
The Visit, I think. Yeah, which is again my vote for scariest Tales episode. I don't remember if Outcast said anything. I don't have any insight, but I think they just, people just want to be on Tales from the Crypt, especially once it got rolling, and they would just do anything. So they just needed like another shock jock type, like Robert Patrick. Why not? And our friend TJ_Howard_gentleman asked 4 questions, and I'm going to paraphrase a couple of them. But will Tales from the Crypt ever be again? I think you're asking, will it ever be back again? Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we'll ever see it like we saw it in the 90s, which is kind of sad. And I honestly, at this point, I kind of hope it doesn't come back.
Yeah.
Because I just think that to try to do it justice, it just wouldn't work. And unless you have a Crypt Keeper puppet, and you have John Kassir doing the voice again, and you have Gil and Al back at the helm, I think without those things, it's just going to be a shell of what it used to be. And I'd rather they just not do that than kind of shit on the franchise.
Yeah, I agree.
And also with all the rights that are going on, like I don't think so.
I mean, never is.
You know what Al says?
but who knows?
Isn't that what Al says? It's like the Gaines family wants nothing to do with a certain producer who owns the rights to the
Kind of
Tales
like
from the
that.
Crypt
Yeah, I
name,
mean,
and the person who owns the Crypt Keeper, like they're not,
yeah,
they're at
it's a whole
odds.
thing.
It's a whole podcast.
It's a whole podcast, exactly. What's next?
If all of you were in a horror movie, you had to choose for each other how you would each die. That's pretty fucking morbid.
Quickly.
I'm gonna choose for my co-hosts that you guys just die peacefully in your sleep. That you guys are like the dad character who just goes to sleep one day and dies, and that's a catalyst for some bad shit happening. But
All right, Mando, I got it. At the hands of Tiffany.
mm-hmm.
You would die a happy man with Tiffany strangling you to death.
Yeah. As long as I get to finish first.
Armando, you need a metal death. You definitely need like a metal something Freddy Krueger, like that bug coming out of you. What was it? Freddy.
Oh no, and the Roach
Turn into
Motel?
cockroach.
No, I want the one that Jason already picked.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think pretty metal as fuck. I'm all hot and bothered over here now. I don't. That's a weird question. I mean, it's not a weird.
I got to make you blush. I'm so happy.
Wait, with the doll or with the?
With but before the transformation of the doll.
Okay.
No,
Gotcha.
doll. Doll.
Oh, why I gotta make it weird, Jason? Why do you gotta make it weird? You know what? Fucking eaten by a snake and Anaconda. Eaten by Ice Cube's Anaconda in the movie Anaconda. He asked also about there's a community on YouTube, Glamster.
Yeah.
I've never heard of this. What was he said? Got taken down, but he's wondering if any of us watched it. I've never heard of that.
I saw them just because I'm Google. I search for Tales from the Crypt stuff so often, so I get like everything in my suggestions. And I guess they were doing like marathons of Crypt episodes, like they were just bootlegging.
Okay.
So, I mean, that kind of stuff, unless you're really careful on a long enough timeline, is going to get taken down eventually.
Yeah. They're taken down. I used to watch those. That's how I watched all of my
really?
the marathons. Was that Glamster account?
Glamster, yeah. So
yeah, I've always kind of gone through the Crypts Tube and Incorporated, who posts everything. And to be fair, like no one's ever really. I mean, I know he had issues with the first channel, but then we'll see.
It's like it's not listed, so you have to like search. I always search for his channel and then look for the videos.
Okay,
so
I
just search for the video. It won't come up. So I think that's how he's.
Hopefully, be careful. Him,
but.
And I think it's interesting that they're still trying to take those down for copyright when you can't see them anywhere else. It's not like he's not. No one's making money off it. He's just trying to. I mean, and we know you've talked to the guy before. He loves the series. Mm-hmm. It's a labor of love for him. But anyhow, I digress. Last one from TJ is most disturbing scene in a Tales from the Crypt episode. And that's a tough one. I think Yellow is pretty disturbing, the very end scene, just because that dynamic with father and son and how like callous it is.
Did I tell you we watched me, my wife, and my 17-year-old watched All Quiet in the Western Front. We had to split over 2 nights because it's so long.
I haven't watched that yet because I haven't had a good time in my life that I want to watch a really upbeat movie.
Yeah, I know exactly. But it's about World War I, but from the German side. So as soon as we finished it, the second half that we watched, I made them watch Yellow just because I'm like, no, you have to see the Crypt version.
Did you guys not talk to each other for the next few days? Like, was it?
I mean, war. What's it good for? Kind of thing. But my most disturbing is probably again the new Arrival episode with Robert Wagner. That ending where he's just like tied to the chair with this like undead ghoulish girl, and like they're not gonna let him out. You can see the corpses of all the other therapists that they kidnapped. He just knows that that's now his fate. Like it's so bleak. It's one thing to like die in a horrible way, but to like be like trapped in that. Or Three's a Crowd, where the guy kills his pregnant wife and his best friends out of jealousy. That's
pretty fucked up too, Jason.
Yeah.
Do you have anything there for that one, Brando?
I'm trying to think the episode, the actor's name where he kept dying repeatedly.
Dig That Cat. That's Joe Pantoliano.
Yeah. From Sopranos. I mean, that was just kind of messed up to begin with. Just to cheat death and to be so confident that every time you kill yourself, you're gonna survive and just know it's not going to happen. I believe he lost like his last chance to live. Like, he was down to his final time when he was being buried alive or something like that.
Yeah, he miscounted how many
Yeah.
times, how many lives he had because he got it from a cat brain transplant from a Nazi doctor, and
As one does.
but as you do, and then he doesn't count the cat's death as
That's
it's been
right.
placed in him. So he thinks that he's being buried alive. He thinks he has one life left. It turns out that's his last life, and then he's going to die before they get a chance to revive him.
And there's another
cat
one.
brain, Nazi doctor. Just God damn it, Tales from the Crypt. Fucking Tales from the Crypt.
And there's another one you experts can tell me where this guy, he was handcuffed to a dead body the entire time,
and
he fell off the cliff at the end.
that's
he's
in the desert.
It wasn't Tree Williams. It was, or it might have been Tree Williams.
It was Kyle MacLachlan. Oh my God!
There you go. Yes, you're right.
And it's on the tip of my tongue too.
Because he couldn't do anything, and just have like, I think at the end they were like vultures pecking at his eyes, man.
Carrying Death.
Carrying Death.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes.
Carrying Death.
There you go. That's where you're the experts. I'm always, I'm already like my parents. I'm like, that guy with the shirt and the
I did Google. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, buy me time. From Melanie _Saint.George. What will you cover once you finish Tales from the Crypt? I think I have an answer for this, and we don't know.
I have ideas.
We have ideas. We thought like Freddy's Nightmares. We thought Creep Show. We thought like Tales from the Dark. A bunch of options. So if you guys have ideas, though, by all means, shoot them to us, and we'll take them into account. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, would you do Tales from the Crypt Keeper? The cartoon?
We've definitely given thought to that, and that's kind of one of the things we'd love to have. Jason's kids, Jody's kids, really kind of watch and come on for, because we think it'd be really cool to get a kids' view of that. My daughter's 20; she's not going to watch it. So.
There's a lot of I have a lot of ideas. I just need to, me, Mando, and Jody just need to get together and just hash out what we want to do. Yada yada yada.
Hey, look, I've been going how many years just doing Guns N' Roses? So you don't know. Like you can, I mean, you're the producers, you're the host of it, but you can, while you do episode breakdowns, just keep having actors come on and talk about their episodes. I mean, it's endless. I mean, this has re-energized my love of the franchise.
That's awesome.
I mean, I think
following you guys and it's just been fun.
I think we'll always have Tales from the Crypt like in our DNA, even if we do like another show or something else. I think that'll always be there, but I want it to be something that I'm going to keep enjoying. I don't want it to become stale for us, because if we don't enjoy it, no one else is going to enjoy it.
I'm still kind of into Freddy's Nightmares, but then I've watched those episodes. I'm like, fuck, there's some bad episodes. And I don't even mean like bad in Tales from the Crypt sense. When they're 50 minutes long, those episodes, and they're just boring, that's tough.
Yeah. Like I would do, again, for those kind of things, I would do like a best of month or something like that. Again, we'll talk about it. We'll definitely let people know at some point.
February or something.
Yeah.
We still have a season and a half left to go. So
but if anybody has cool ideas, please send them our way, because I know there's always those like forgotten like Nightmare Cafe shows that came out back in the 80s or the 90s that I'm always down. Like I'm sure there's stuff that I don't even remember that I'd be probably down to watch and do just for fun. So whatever, we'll figure it out. And I know we've also talked about doing more movies and stuff like that, like old just cheesy fucking movies. So we'll see. We still need to make Jason sit through Blood-Sucking Freaks at some point.
I'm so game.
And also for our Patreons, we've done one so far, like drink/token watch, and we do want to start doing those again and firing those up again, and just having a good time just watching shitty movies and shooting the shit. So and by shitty movies I mean like movies I love.
It's getting late for Brando, so let's power through these.
But for best from our friend Don't Break the Oath 9, great Merciful Fate record, and I dig the Serpents of the Light Deicide Avatar. What are your thoughts on the Creep Show franchise? I'll go first. So far it's been hit or miss. I've liked more episodes than I haven't, and that Evil Dead fucking tribute one they did is like one of the best things I've ever seen in my life. So I'm all for more horror. I'm all for more anthologies.
Yeah, they do everything Mando said. There's been some great ones, like the Evil Dead one, the backdoor Evil Dead, the Don't Call It Evil Dead episode.
Yeah.
Brando,
have you seen this all, Brando? Yeah,
I've seen select episodes, because what channel is it on?
On Shudder.
It's on Shudder.
Yeah, I don't have Shudder. There were sometimes it was on AMC.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
like before The Walking Dead, before I gave up on that show. I know it's quote unquote ended now. But now that you mentioned that Evil Dead episode, I get to see what I have on my streaming services because I want to see Creep Show. I want Shutters.
Also, Shutters is really, really cheap. It's like what, $6 a month?
$6 a month, yeah. And
yeah.
It is my favorite streaming service by far.
Yeah.
Like it's just all kinds of great horror stuff on there.
Man, I don't even pay for my Spotify. I mean, I wear clothes that I've had since I was 10.
I feel you. I love it. I love the Ninja Turtle shirt and the Ninja Turtle on the microphone cord too.
By the way, I didn't realize this was not on purpose because I guess I should have a Ninja Turtles podcast as well. My thermos, I have the Leonardo hanging on my headphones wire. I'm wearing a shirt.
I love it.
My Ninja Turtles tattoo. I'm ready to be a father.
Yep.
Man, I have you read The Last Ronin?
I have not.
You need to read The Last Ronin, the new comic series.
I've heard about it. Fucking
unreal. It's so good. It's so good. And then I'll stand by the first movie. The soundtrack for the first movie is one of my favorite soundtracks of anything.
I love the first movie. So
the Foot Clan music is like what I want whenever I'm walking anywhere, like because I travel for work. Whenever I'm walking, it gets a little bit seedy. Just that Foot Clan music plays in my head. I'm like, I'm ready to fight a bunch of Foot Clan people.
I'll say this. It was really quick. I don't mean to cut you off. For whatever reason, did a rewatch of the 1987 series. I don't even know if I want to call it a rewatch because I don't think I've watched it since I was 5. There are episodes where it's like very horror-esque.
Really?
There's an episode that this guy is completely a parody of Freddy Krueger. It's somebody that visits you in your dreams.
Well, there's the guy who like turns into a fly.
Oh yeah, Baxter Stockman. Yeah, that was like what
he mutates into a fly. He's still a fantastic doctor. He just happens to be a fly.
Yes.
You know what I love about the first movie though? The Sam Rockwell cameo.
Oh shit, that's right. Yeah,
I know you're talking about.
God, that movie's so good.
I want to go watch it now.
I love that movie. I fucking love it. And last question, once again from MJP12342. What is your assessment of season 6 so far? I'm gonna say more bad than good, but it's still a pretty mixed bag, and we still have some episodes to go. So what I think has been good has been real good, and what's been bad has been real bad. But overall, I think it's been a pretty mediocre season, just to be honest.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. Not unwatchable, but
no, definitely not unwatchable.
We haven't got to that point yet.
Yeah, so we'll keep trucking through MJP, and we appreciate you trucking along with us.
Mm-hmm. I did put out a call on Twitter, and we got 2 quick questions I'm going to get to.
Oh, okay.
Our good friend, listener, and Patreon, Palmer Lynch, asked, who would you like to invite to your octagon?
To fight?
I'm assuming to fight. So, Mando, I'll let you take that one.
There's a certain mayor of Knox County, Tennessee, Glenn fucking Jacobs. I would break that motherfucker's knees. I'm just kidding. He'd probably tap out first, but I mean, I have a list.
All right.
Are you a wrestler? Are you a fighter?
I've done jujitsu for years and years and years.
That's
and
cool.
done wrestled in high school and stuff like that. So I just want to grapple. I actually don't want to fight anybody. I just want to grapple. I want to get punched in the face. I'm too old. I'm too old for concussions. So I just want to grapple. But I would grapple Kane in a heartbeat. But I would do it for charity. And when I win, all that money has to go to a LGBTQIA charity just to piss him off. Nice. And then we had to share Bud Light. Even though I hate Bud Light, I'll drink it just to fucking piss him off.
My Bud Light.
Disgusting.
Right. Our last question from our friend Allison from the Who's There podcast. All 3 of us.
Oh, Allison. Love Allison.
What's your favorite erotic thriller?
Oh,
go ahead. If you got one, go for it.
No, go ahead. You already had Jason.
I was gonna, because I saw this, I was thinking, because it's it's a very loosely defined genre, but I'm going with Poison Ivy with Drew Barrymore.
Oh God, I haven't thought about that movie in a long ass time.
So it depends on what you call thriller. Bound, obviously.
Yes, I was wondering if you were going to say Bound.
Oh, without question.
Jennifer Diller connection.
Oh yeah, without question. And then Secretary, I guess that was kind of a thriller. Yeah. And there was one from the 70s, and God, I can't remember the name of it. And maybe early 80s. And it was this French film. and like really, really erotic and racy for the time. But then like they're treating all this erotic stuff, and then they just show a horse dying, like a legit them slaughtering a horse for no fucking reason in the movie. And so you're watching this movie and it's kind of steamy, and it's like, what the fuck? I don't like plan to see an animal death in this goddamn movie.
The Campbell Holocaust meets Rochelle.
Somehow worse because
I smell sitcom.
It's a matriarch, like mistress in French, I think it was called. But that was a fucking crazy one. I'm gonna go with erotic thriller. I think Bound is an erotic thriller.
Yeah, totally. Brando.
I'm going through just Google right now to see what brings to. I mean, the first one you said erotic thriller, I was like, I haven't seen this in a long time, and let me see if it's on this list. Sliver with Sharon Stone.
Yes,
That's a good one. But as I'm going down this list, single white female.
Yeah, there you go.
That's got to be one of the best of all time, I think.
I mean, that was borderline horror right there. That was
yeah.
And geez, this one has wild things. I mean, I just think about that one scene that you just keep rewinding and fast forwarding. Or rewinding and rewind. We know what I mean.
Yeah, the guys from Horror Queers did a great episode on that recently.
Okay.
It was really fun. It was a really fun listen.
Oh, I bet it was. But yeah, no, Sliver. Yeah, Sliver. Go. That's my vote because that's what came to my brain first.
Mm-hmm.
I think from the 80s too, you had what was the other good one? Dangerous Liaisons.
Yeah.
What was another kind
What's
of
the one with Mickey Rourke in Kim Basinger?
Fatal Attraction?
No. Oh no, what is it? Googling. Great podcasting.
So we need a producer.
I mean, there's a lot. It's a pretty broad genre. Like, depending on what you consider erotic. I mean, there's a lot of those giallos from the 70s, like The Strange Vices of Mrs. Ward with Edwidge Fenech.
Oh, it's 9.5 weeks.
Okay. Oh yeah, I don't know if I call it a thriller, but I think it could pass. Yeah.
All right. Okay. I think that wraps things up. We've hit a very myriad of topics from Guns N' Roses to erotic thrillers. Brando, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
I hope everything goes well with your new edition.
Thank you.
Spinoff. Go play some Guns N' Roses for them in the crib to hopefully soothe them late at nights. Go check out his podcast. Where can people find you? Where can people follow you?
I appreciate it, Jason, and very nice to meet you. Or Brando, I guess.
Likewise, sir. Likewise.
Yeah, so nice to meet you, and I appreciate you guys having me on.
Thanks for coming on. It's fantastic.
Thank you. So, Appetite for Distortion can be found in all the usual podcast places, like iHeartRadio, with Spotify. I do have a YouTube channel where if you want to watch me interview people instead of, you can see me and Dave Mustaine instead of hearing it. Just go to Appetite for Distortion on YouTube. And the same thing with Appetite for Horror on all the podcast platforms and on the same YouTube page. I have a playlist and all the usual suspects as far as social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and even the dreaded TikTok. But that's I don't do any dances. It's just putting like interview clips up there and things like that nature.
Do this, let's shit and point. I don't understand it at all. I'm just so mad.
I don't get it. I'm just in the habit now of making like YouTube short videos, 1 minute videos, and putting that on all my social media. And that's the way people consume things now. You have a minute to do it.
Feed the algorithm.
And I just try to get creative with pictures and GIFs and all that. So I do that same thing for horror. So it's just been a lot of fun doing both the horror and the GNR thing, and we'll see where it goes.
Very cool.
Okay. Well, next week we will be reviewing Surprise Party. We appreciate everyone for listening. We'd really appreciate if you'll give us a rating review on iTunes, a rating on Spotify, and check out our Patreon for bonus content. Also, check out our YouTube channel for videos of these podcasts. And with that, we thank you for listening to Dads from the Crypts.
Adios.
Follow Dads from the Crypt on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or I will follow you to the grave. No, seriously, you really should watch. But be careful what you ask for. you may get it.